All right, perfect. So
Let's go.
just a quick, I gave them a brief introduction to you guys. They actually were responsible for a homework assignment to watch the episode that you guys did on YouTube marketing very, 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 very recently um, to try and get a little bit about what that entails in terms of metrics and things and why the content creation is more important. But just to kind of give them a little background of who you are, both of you, the importance of what you've learned and things of that, and then just
Okay, sweet. Well, my name is Brayden. Super nice to meet you guys. Oh, wait, let me turn. Do you have echo cancellation turned on? Because I'm hearing myself. Oh, weird. Now it's not. Now I don't hear myself. That's weird.
Kind of.
No, I still do. You 100% have it turned on? There it is. Okay. Well, my name is Brayden. This is Kostas. It's super nice to meet all of you guys. We are full time podcasters and we live in Los Angeles. We live together. We're roommates. We've been living together now for like these last 3 years, and it's so random, but we met on TikTok of all places. I went to the University of Oregon and I graduated in 2019. I was an advertising major. If you guys are thinking about going to college, definitely check out the University of Oregon. It's the number one school in the country. He can't say the same. He went to
I went to
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. A lot more fun of a school.
Yeah,
Really great
just
people.
not as good at sports.
I'm
and
so
stuff.
glad I got to experience being in the Midwest. It was great. Really recommend Wisconsin. Definitely check out Wisconsin.
A more superior school, if you guys want to check it out, is Oregon.
It's a fluke.
But I went there for 4 years, graduated in advertising, and then I started a company when I was still in school. So like my senior year, midway through, I was like, I'm gonna open up an LLC. I'm gonna try to figure this whole thing out. And so I started freelancing for different like brands, little restaurants, sororities. I was doing engagement stuff. I was doing graduation photos, like anything to make a dollar. I was trying to make money like with the camera, and that was kind of like this aha moment of, that this could be a full-time career and that there's something here. And so when I left, I came back down and I moved immediately to Bali. I was like, I don't know, everyone was trying to get a job, and I'm like, I don't want to get a job. I think I want to move to Indonesia. So I moved to Bali, and our entire plan was to make videos in the United States. I read this book called The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. You guys should check it out. But I read this book and I'm like, you know what? I want to figure out a way to make American dollars but live in a different country and spend a different currency. So that was our whole idea. We quickly ran out of money, and after 2 months, I had to come back to the US because I had no money left. And I started applying for jobs, but I was applying for jobs and then pitching my company. And I got probably like 1,000 no's. Everyone's like, that's crazy. We don't want to hire you guys. I'm like, okay. And finally, one day on LinkedIn, the Los Angeles Lakers had a job open, and it was to be their like team video producer, which basically meant I would be in charge of filming the games, traveling with the team, documenting. You're kind of like the team historian, basically, is kind of how I thought about it. So I applied, I got that job, and I worked there for 5 years, and then I quit in August. So I recently quit, and we've gone all in on this podcast, and I also have another company where we make ads for brands. Some of the ads that you guys might be seeing soon on your phones, some stuff for like Nike Swim. We do some stuff for 1800 Tequila. We just finished a big campaign that I can't talk about, but it's been super fun. So that's a spark note of what I've been up to these last few years. I'll let Kostas go.
Right on. So I graduated back in 2017 from the University of Wisconsin, incredible university. And I moved back home. I grew up in LA, so I moved back home. I had experience with like making YouTube videos and social media stuff just because I got introduced to it a little bit earlier on. And I knew that that's what I kind of wanted to do. I wanted to use a camera to make a living. When I graduated, though, I didn't really have like a plan. I was just like, I'm gonna make content and see if I can figure this thing out. At the same time, I also thought I wanted to be a famous DJ. So I was balancing DJing on the weekends and making music during the week, and also like freelancing with one of my best friends, Josh. After 2 years, I realized, hey, I'm not a DJ, and decided to stop that and go all in with content. And so I was freelancing doing photo and video work as well as brand partnerships for a while, and I still do that, but met Brayden, we moved in together, started a podcast about 6 months after we moved in together, and then I want to say about a month or two after we recorded our first episode, I got a DM on Instagram from a DJ group. One of the guys named Andrew. The group's called Loud Luxury. Famous song called Body. You may have heard of it. But they asked me if I wanted to come, if I had ever thought of wanting to shoot DJs, and it was honestly like or music, and it was something on like my bucket list that I had always wanted to do, is like go on tour with a band. I just didn't know how I was gonna like start shooting music. I was shooting a lot of like real estate at the time, and honestly kind of like any and everything. So then my first show that I did with Loud Luxury was EDC in Las Vegas. I'm not sure if you guys are big into EDM, but EDC is like one of the largest music festivals for EDM in, I think, North America and potentially even the whole world. So I ended up shooting, I was at front of house to start. I shot like their intro, and then I got up on stage, and I remember having a moment of like, holy, I don't know if I can curse, but holy, you can fill in the blank. I'm on stage like doing what I love to do in front of like 50,000 people, something that like I never even thought I'd be able to do. So that was a really, really cool moment, and felt like I almost had like made it in a way. But that feeling of like, this is so cool. I'm getting to like tour every single weekend, being in clubs in Vegas and traveling all around the US and doing shows every week. It quickly faded. I would say about 6 to 8 months in, I got extremely burnt out. I ended up touring for about a little over a year and a half, between a year and a half and 2 years. But I had the feeling of like, I don't want to do this anymore, but my identity got really wrapped up in like, this is a really sexy thing to say that I do for work. So I was balancing, or I was debating whether or not to like, do I stay in this or do I quit? And I balanced with that decision. I juggled that decision probably for about 6 months. I ended up quitting about a year and a half ago, and the last year and a half has been me really doubling down on my personal brand and the podcast, and basically making a living using a camera, making content for brands, as well as podcasting. So that's, I guess, my Spark Notes version.
Yeah, sweet. You can unmute us now, Ryan. Oh, he's got it. Someone's got it. Someone's on the case. Dude, that was pretty good. 4 minutes each.
I'm on the case.
Oh, you're on the case.
There we go. All right, questions, guys. Anybody got questions?
Yeah, another thing I'll add to, if any of you guys are interested in going to this space, we coach creative. So you have like anything you want to ask us. If you guys want to learn how to make money with this, if you want to learn camera settings or best go-to settings, how to pitch brands, like anything under the sun, this is all we do. So we're more than down to answer it.
I have a question. I'm the one that unmuted the microphone. But I have a question about like, so you guys are doing a podcast and you started this. How hard was it to start this up and then continue with it and help it grow? Like, at what point were you like, let's stick with this and see where it goes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll do half and then I'll let Kostas do the other half. I had a podcast before this one. So I did like 60 episodes on a completely different show. And so I had most of the stuff that we needed. And it's a pretty decent investment to start a podcast. It doesn't have to be, but I think at the level that I wanted to do it, it's like, it was going to be like a few $1,000, and it was just like, hey, I have all the stuff, like we might as well do this. And I knew there was an appetite for it because at the time we would get like maybe 150 people to watch the show in a week, which like you're like, oh, that's nothing, like there's no one really watching their show. But if you think about it, in a room, 150 people is a lot of people, and every week they were like tuning in. So I'm like, there's something here, I just can't figure out how to grow this thing. And we were only doing audio at the time. And so when Kostas and I like chatted about it with our other roommate at the time, Chase, we're like, you know, we should do this. It was basically taking the same concept that I've done, and we're all doing it, and we're all in a different space. Chase does car stuff for Genesis and Hyundai, so he's like making a lot of the car commercials that you guys would see for them. I was doing the Lakers stuff, and then Kostas was touring with Loud Luxury, so I'm like, there's something here with bringing these three different perspectives together. And my opinion at the time, and it has not changed, was I was like, let's make the #1 creative podcast in the world. Like that was the goal. That still is the goal, and that's like at the forefront of my brain when we're doing it, even to this day. I'll let you go.
Yeah, when we originally were talking about it, we've now done the podcast for about 3 years.
Every week.
Yeah, we've missed a handful, but for the most part, we've stayed really consistent. There wasn't a lot of people doing podcasts about what we talk about. You know, there were some out there, but we felt like we had a really unique perspective and we could bring something fresh to the table. Also, I think when it comes to photography and video, YouTube has definitely changed a little bit where it's like less gatekeepy. But when we were first starting out, like,
there's no one to ask about this stuff.
There's no one to ask about this stuff, and like sometimes you would try to DM somebody or ask some questions, and people would be a little gatekeepy, and really not be like give you the full exactly what you wanted to hear, essentially. And so we were like, why don't we just like share everything that we know about this space, and what we don't know, we can bring on incredible creators and like interview them and learn ourselves, and also have really interesting conversations. And the way we structure the conversations are what questions can we ask, and what about their story can provide the most value to our listeners. It really started to take off once we started repurposing our long form videos and podcasts to short form. So that was really big. We had an intern at the time, and he was just making us like 2 to 3 clips a day, which was phenomenal. And it's honestly been like the most fulfilling part of, I would say, me and Brayden's career. I can speak for myself,
No,
but
I agree.
the messages that we get from people, like the way that we've been able to, I think, impact up and coming like photographers and filmmakers or content creators has been incredible. And it's also been so cool to get to meet and connect with some of these creators. Some of the people that we've had on the show have been people that we've looked up to for a while, and like getting to sit down and have an hour and a half long conversation has been incredible. But yeah, we're just like super bullish on like the podcast, long form content, creating personal brand, building a business around it. And so like, it's just been an incredible experience, and like we're 3 years in, it feels like we're just getting started. And I also think for us, like we went into it with the mindset of we're gonna do this for like decades, instead of like, you know, there's a crazy stat about podcasts. I believe it's 90% of podcasts don't get past episode 3, and of the remaining like 10 or 15%, 85 or 90% don't make it past episode 20. And so we were like, we have something here. If we just don't stop, like, we're going to succeed. We have a lot of other, not a lot, but like there's a handful of other people that we've seen start podcasts similar to ours, talk about similar stuff, and they're just not as consistent. And whether you're doing a podcast, photography, video, whatever it is you're doing, like consistency is like #1 thing. Like you're going to get better the more you do something. And if you don't stop, you can't lose. Like it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I also think too, what's interesting is like all of you probably have things that you're interested in, and you're like, oh, I have this one idea that, you know, you're like, oh, I'm thinking about making videos around it. Like there's room for all of you in the room to have your own thing and your own content about whatever thing that interests you. And it could be the most random niche thing, but there's a group of people out there that are very interested in said thing. Like every day on TikTok, I'll see something, I'm like, I had no idea this group even existed. It has like 5,000 comments about this most random thing ever. But yeah, we'll take another one. We can take as many as you guys got for us.
We got all day.
We got front row, white shirt.
All right.
So for like a week now, me and my buddy here, we've been kind of talking about maybe starting a podcast. But we want to do a podcast, but we don't know kind of what to do it on. We don't know if we want to just start talk about whatever goes on in the school, or what. So we'll probably, if we actually go along with it, we'll probably find out what we want to do. But how do you recommend, one, coming up with, do you guys have like a general idea, or like do you guys talk about very specific stuff on your podcast?
Yeah, I think on the topic of figuring out what you want to make your show around is one, like the most important thing. It can't be like a generalist thing, because one, I don't know if you two are famous or not. Maybe you are, maybe I don't know, but if you're not super famous, no one cares, you know? So you have to pick a topic that's like very specific that a group of people are interested in, whether it's like, you know, maybe one of you is like, or maybe you both have a passion for YouTube, or maybe you both have a passion for TikTok and you're like talking about the latest things going on TikTok, or, you know, sports, like, right? You have to have something that like a group of people can lean on, where ours was like the camera stuff, right? So our entire thesis was there's no one out there that is teaching people how to make money with a camera and talking about the experiences that are both good, bad, and ugly. And so that was like our lane. We're like, we're going to have a support group basically, because no one talks about this stuff, and make it about this topic. And then the guests that we bring on are always relevant to said topic. Like even the other day we had on someone who's like a business coach for some of the biggest YouTubers in the world. Like every YouTuber this guy coaches, and we can't tell you who the YouTubers are, but you all have seen them. Like they're 10 million plus on YouTube. They make so much money. And he was explaining how, you know, he's their business coach, but he's a business coach for like multi-million-dollar companies as well. And so then we tried to angle it to be about creators and how creators can make more money with their personal brands. And so even like his expertise is in said thing, but we have to figure out a way to like tie it back into what our audience is going to find interesting, because otherwise no one's going to care. So like at the forefront of our brain, we're always thinking these people use a camera or are in the creative field in some way, shape, or form, whether they're designers, photographers, filmmakers, directors, like they're in, you know, you're artists, they're in this space. So that's kind of what I would say. I think that if you go into it and you're just like, oh, we're just going to talk about whatever, like no one's going to listen. And you have to think like your first episode ever that you do should be shorter than however long you think your podcast is going to be, because you have to think about it like, if you guys were artists, I'm not going to listen to your whole album like start to finish if I just found you. I'm going to try one song. And if I don't like your one song, I'm never going to listen to another song. So think about your first podcast being shorter and more like, boom, like you got to know what you're talking about. Kostas is the best at coming up with the notes for the podcast. He's like the goat at it. And he's very good at organizing our show in a way that's like flows seamlessly. I come up with ideas, but I'm not like the guy that's the organizer. This is our organizing king to my right, and he's so good at it. And like without that, we don't have a show. And so I think that's really important to figure out which one of you two is like, hey, I'm the guy who's like, I can come up with anything off the spot. Like I can just start talking off the cuff. Kostas is much more like he goes by the notes, but he's also our guy that's going to come up with the questions. So figuring out which one of you two is for that specific thing. You know, like I handle the brand deals for our show. I communicate with all these different brands, and I'm figuring and like negotiating with them and trying to get us more money. That's like my thing that I bring to the table. And then we're both trying to get guests and stuff for the show. So just figuring out which one of you does certain things better than the other, and then diving into that.
Yeah, I think just also, I guess, reiterating what Brayden is saying, like, if you want to start a podcast and just BS about whatever you got going on in school, whatever it may be, phenomenal. I think there's so much value in creating a podcast, not just because of, like, you know, the potential to, like, make money from it or whatever. I think it just... it's a great way to work on your communication skills. Like, and I think that's just a life skill that is phenomenal. And just being able to sit down and have a conversation with, you know, somebody or a guest or whatever it may be, your co-host for 30 minutes to an hour and a half. Like, that's great. Like, I have found that when I go out and like I meet someone new, like it helps me with my communication skills. So I think regardless, like, creating a podcast, awesome.
You should do it for sure.
But if you're going to go into it being like, oh, you know, we think we're pretty funny, or we think we can have a fun conversation or interesting conversation for, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, like, great if you don't have a plan, like Brayden said, no one's gonna listen. And so like if you want to do it just like for fun, just as a creative outlet, phenomenal. If you want to do it
to grow and
to turn it into like an actual business or use it to, you know, leverage it in some way, you definitely should go into it with more of a plan. I think if it is something you guys want to do, figure out what it is that topic is going to be. Clarity is like so important. Figuring out like who your avatar is that you want to talk to.
Yeah. What is the avatar?
An avatar is like if you could think of who is your ideal person that you want to talk to, it's that person. So like their name, their age, their backgrounds, like what they do for a living, where they are in life. Like if you can figure that out and like go into every episode being like, I'm trying to talk to that specific person. And normally it's like you a couple years ago.
Yeah. But you could make one about high school, like the stuff that you guys are going through right this second. Interview, you know, people that you're interested in, people that have an interesting story, and it could be like the high school pod. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up, and you could shoot it on your phone. The number one most important thing though is that the audio doesn't suck, because your video can suck and it's fine, but if your audio sucks, no one will listen. So make sure that you guys get little $20 mics on Amazon and that they don't sound terrible.
I also think, and I have so many other points, but I'll leave you at we can talk about podcasting all day, honestly, if you guys have like niche questions. I think a lot also changed for us when we started interviewing, when we had guests on, and we didn't just start from their background. Like we used to be like,
oh, like start from here.
Tell me when you first picked up a camera. Yeah. Like that's fucking boring. Sorry to cuss, but like if, for example, we had like the Lakers photographer on, and like the first thing we started with was who was the fuck?
Abigail.
No, who's the player? It was
what?
With the camera.
Oh, it was Pat Beverly.
I don't know if you guys watch sports, but there was a viral moment where like Pat Bev took her camera
it was so funny.
Showed the ref and was like, it's a foul. And so we started with that. We're like, that's the most interesting thing. That's gonna hook the audience. Yeah. Another thing, like we never used to intro the guests. Now we do. We now have had like a trailer where it's like a 30 to 45 second, you know, trailer edited of like what they're gonna or like moments that they talked about. Then we go into introducing the guest. Then we go into a little thing that we like to do, the one-handed crack. Then we ask the first question. There's a structure to our show. And when I'm thinking about writing up the questions, it's not just like, let me just write out a bunch of questions. It's like, okay, what are the 4 or 5 or 3 to 5 different topics we're going to talk about? What are points we can hit in here? And in what order are we going to ask this? And like, what's the flow of the conversation going to be like?
Sorry to just go crazy.
But if you want to take it seriously and it is something that you're interested in, like
you should DM us too. I'm down to chat with you guys more about it. Just DM us on Instagram.
But I hope that answers your question. But definitely, I think number one thing is just try to get some clarity on what it is you want your show to be about.
Back row, what do you got for me? Come to the front. We can't hear you. Barely. Okay.
Get right up to the camera.
Moving up.
Moving up. I want your face to fill the screen. There we go.
Brayden, I followed you for like 3 or 4 years, so it's kind of weird that you're talking to my class now. Anyway, do you guys have any advice on getting like a creative career off the ground?
Yeah, like what specifically do you want to go into?
Me, it's music. So, but it's like I don't know. I feel like music and video and all that kind of like media goes kind of hand in hand, like in terms of networking and getting yourself out there and creating like a public image. Like I just want to know if you guys have any advice. What was that?
What kind of music?
I don't know, like yeah, like indie rock, pop-ish. I don't know.
It's good. It's actually really good.
Okay, sweet. I would say, I think you're right in the sense that they do go together. Could you mute me really quick? Mute you guys, sorry. I think you're right in the sense that they do go together and they do intertwine. I think my first step would be to gather some info on like the top 25 people that you want to emulate and see what it is that they're doing. Do they post TikToks? Do they post Instagram stuff? Like, how do they promote their songs? Go back to the very bottom and see kind of how they built their brand and the things that they're talking about. I think right now as an artist, there probably isn't a better time to try to grow your account than like on TikTok. It's kind of crazy how some artists are just skyrocketing with like short little snippets of their process and like taking the small, like even if you have 5 people that support you, learn from the 5 people and build the 5 into 10, because where there's 5, there's 10, where there's 10, there's 100, there's 1,000. And just like how we've grown our show, like it's funny because I go on Instagram and I see like this number. It's like, well, almost 87,000 people are following us on Instagram. And if you told me 3 years ago that there'd be 87,000 people following our Instagram for a creative podcast, I'd be like, there's just no way. Even though that's what I knew could happen. And it started though with the first 10 people that listen to the show, and I would DM them and ask them, what do you guys want to see? What do you like about the show? What do you hate about the show? Like, what do you want to get better? So the few people that do listen to your music, if you've put music out, I would get real data on like what they like. Hey, like what other music are you listening to? So then you can go listen to that. And like Kostas can speak more on like actually being an artist because he pursued being a DJ for quite some time. But from like a creative,
Just had no success. It's all good.
from a creative standpoint to get better, like that's the same approach that I took to making videos. Where I was in college, I went on YouTube and I saw the very, very best YouTubers, and I was like, okay, these people are posting this frequently. I would download their videos and I put them in Premiere and I would stopwatch time them to see how long it would be before they cut. So then you can start to see like why this person's style is interesting and why it draws you to it. Like, do they, the first video that I ever was super drawn to was like a Casey Neistat video. And he like, there's a shot of him walking into like a Home Depot in New York, and like one shot is like across the street and then the second shot is like a little closer in the middle of the street. And I'm like, is there a crew following him around? Like, how the hell is this making sense? And then I was like, oh my gosh, he's literally setting up a tripod and doing these actions like 6 different times. And it's like the level of care that he puts into these videos, and that's why they're so interesting. So from like a creative standpoint, I think you can apply that to music, but I'll let you speak more on the actual like music side of stuff.
Okay, I have a couple things. I would say music is tough. I attempted it myself, and I've also been around a lot of musicians, some up and coming and some who have been very established. I would say when it comes to like creating music or art in general, as soon as you have to create in order to like make money, it becomes a complicated thing. I would figure out a way for you to make money not doing the music, to be able to completely create with complete like creative freedom and not have the stress of being like, how am I going to make money this month? And if it's like, if you're making money through music, amazing. But like, I think when I was first starting out, I think honestly, a piece of advice that I would give to myself would be like, get a job like right out of college, so that like you have like super consistent income coming on, so that you can just like really focus on getting incredible at your craft, and you're not putting this like extra pressure on yourself. Because as artists, it's like it gets complicated when you're doing what you are super passionate about to also make money. So that's like my one thing. Also, I'm sure you really love it. With anything creative, make sure you do really love it. I was touring with Loud Luxury, and they're arguably like, they're a massive DJ group, but they're touring, and I would say like 60% of the shows they probably didn't want to do because they had to do it to like, they're making money and it's their job. And it's like the EDCs or the Vegas residencies are only like, few and far between. And so it's like, there's going to be a lot of shows that you're going to have to do, and a lot of like open mics, a lot of gigs that like, it isn't sexy. It isn't like the thing that you want to be doing. So you got to make sure that you really do love what you are doing, because even if there are only 3 people in the crowd watching you, like you're doing it for the love of the game. And so if you can figure out like how can I sustainably do this for a decade? And how can I do this sustainably for a decade? Meaning, how can I like make money and like fund basically me being able to do this for a while? And also, do I really, really love this? Because if I don't, I'm gonna resent it, and it's gonna be like way more of a grind. So I would say that.
And like even
yeah.
be prepared to work a lot harder than the average person is working for whatever job that they have. Like a regular job is set up where you go for 8 hours, you auto make money, right? Where a creative career is not like that at all. You might start out of school where all of my friends out of school were making like tremendously more amounts of money than I was making when I started out. And then slowly I started getting better and learning more, and it started to climb. And I think a cool thing about the creative career is it's like limitless. It is. But not everyone obviously can get to this top percentile, but it is limitless depending on how much work you're able to put in. And like it's up to you. There's no one that's like gonna hold your hand and be like, you have this paycheck come in. Like we have to work for every cent of money that we get, and like everything is just up to us. Like if we didn't work for 2 weeks, like we won't get any money. Like we won't get paid. Like a regular job pays you every 2 weeks, you know? And so like even my job, what Kostas was just saying, was the Lakers job. I loved the job, but I really wanted to be a full-time creator, full-time podcaster. Even you're like, that's the coolest job ever. It's like, yeah, it was really cool. But all I could think about the whole time I was there was like trying to build my own thing. So when I'd come home from work, I'd work on my own stuff. And even when I was on the road on these hotels, I would be working on my own stuff at night. So you have to be prepared, I think, as a creative to put in that sort of sacrifice, because it's not just going to get handed to you, and they're not going to be like, hey, in 1 year, you're going to get promoted to senior this, and then in 2 years, you'll get promoted to this person. And it's like, it's just not like that, you know?
I also think one other point that I want to make is community is so important when it comes to anything creative. And collaboration, there's also power in that as a creative. So get around, try to find, I don't know how it really works in music and stuff, but like try to find like-minded individuals who are doing the same stuff as you. Try to figure out how you can get in contact with people who are already seeing some success. And being around other people will give you inspiration and help you get through those times where you're like, maybe I want to give up. Yeah. But like being around other people who are doing the same stuff as you, I think is really inspiring and will help a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of power in collaboration and community.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, you're unmuted, Charlie. You can say it.
Thank you. That did answer my question. And good luck with the podcast.
Thank you.
So I did have one random thing that these guys don't know it yet, but something kind of went through yesterday that I'm going to tell them now because I think it's prevalent to where you guys came back from very recently. Yesterday we are now the proud owners of 13 Sony ZV-E10 Mark IIs.
Hey!
So we are actually able to grab those for a great little treat to use for you guys. Yes. And seeing as you guys just came back from Kando, I wanted to see what that experience might have been like and kind of what that might be for those that don't know what that is.
Where are they?
Wait, did you ask about Sony Kando? Okay.
Hit it.
I'll take this because I got the invite. Brayden didn't. I gave him a charity +1 invite. I said, can I bring my good friend Brayden? He's a really nice guy. And they're like, maybe this one time. Anyways, so Sony Kando is this event that Sony puts on every year, and basically they choose a destination in the U.S. Last year was Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City, and then this year was in Santa Barbara, and they invite about 400 or 500 creators, all types of different people who do camera stuff, photo, video, music, people that use Sony cameras. They invite them out. It's like an all expenses paid weekend. They put us up at like the Ritz, and basically they like will announce new products, and they'll have like activations for you to shoot. You can rent whatever camera you want, test it out for the weekend. But the coolest thing is that there's 500 awesome creators there, and so the activations are cool. It's cool to see what new gear they put out, but it's an opportunity to just like be in a confined space with a bunch of people who you've either met before or you've like connected with on social media and have never met, or people in the space that you really look up to. And so what I think is super cool about the Sony Kando experience is that you just get to connect with and have a weekend around like-minded individuals and people who are doing similar stuff to you or things that you want to do, and you get to connect with them. It's really fun.
You have any questions coming up?
Anyone have any questions at all?
Oh, I do.
Another Charlie?
Hey, oh my God. Dylan, can you just ask me for me?
Yeah, what is it?
What kind of cameras do they shoot on, and what's their favorite camera overall?
So his question is, what cameras do you guys shoot on, and what's your favorite camera overall?
I just sold my camera 2 days ago, but I'm gonna tell you this now. This will be fun. We're gonna go pick up a new camera, and as soon as we get off this call at the store, I'm buying an FX3, which is a Sony camera. So now we're a full Sony household. I used to use Canon. I liked Canon. I just don't think they do enough with creators, and it's super unfortunate. They work with like 4 or 5 people, and I just don't think that they're at the forefront of like where technology is going. I think Sony is the wave. But I will say, if any of you are in the market for your first camera really doesn't matter at all. It's just about learning the settings and getting a camera and not using your phone if like that's something you're interested in, if you want to be a photographer or video, whatever. So I had a Canon T5i to start, and I think you did too, right? Did you have a T5i? Yeah, it's like a great starter camera. Whatever camera you can get your hands on, like that ZV-10 that they just bought you guys is like perfect. It's like fantastic. I am a big fan of the Sony FX3, and I also really like the Sony FX6, which is like the big brother to it. Yeah. What do you like? And the ZV-1, this is like my baby. This is our new, we shoot like a lot of stuff vertical on it. This is like the big brother to the camera that you guys just got. So this is like one of my favorite cameras ever. And it's so small, and I think for a camera, it's cheap. It's like $2,000 and you get an amazing camera. So yeah.
I also have a ZVE1. Mine is in black, not white though.
It's not as cool as the white one.
A lot cooler. I have a Sony A1. And then I have a Leica Q2, which is I use just for photography. I also have a Fujifilm X100VI, which was a camera that I was actually gifted earlier this year, which was cool. I was using the Leica, and then I switched over to the Fuji. And then we just went to Utah on a trip, and one of the guys that we podcasted with was like, "What are you doing with the Fuji if you have the Leica?" So I'm like, "You're right." So now I'm shooting photos on the Leica again. But as far as like as far as content creation goes, the ZVE1, for like my actual professional work, I have the Sony A1, and then for like fun photos and like landscape stuff, the Leica Q2, and I would say the Leica is probably my favorite.
I'm going to switch because someone else has a question.
Okay.
Good.
Hi there. Okay, so I have a question just about like when you're coming out of high school and you're like really young, and like you're in college and you want to be creative and you want to hit the ground running, you know, being whether it's like it's acting or just getting in front of a camera and being a personality. What's the best way to really start getting work? Being, you know, like in front of the camera and meeting people and, you know, making your way in that business. Like, where should you start?
You want to be an actor?
That would be great. Or just honestly, like, I don't even know, just like a personality, just to be in front and just like, you know, be out there.
If you want to make like hits and whatnot, I feel like TikTok is a great place to do that on, or on Reels. Like I had a really silly page during COVID that like exploded for like skits, and then I stopped because I didn't want to be like an actor comedian. But if I kept
Didn't have
going,
the chops.
if I kept going that route, I think I could have done it with like the route that page was going. But I think it's just about posting your stuff consistently. Like it's about breaking this barrier of like caring about what other people think about you and just posting the things that you find interesting and like the route that you want to go down, whether it's comedic, whether it's drama related, whether, you know, whatever, because you have the platform, and if you have a phone, it's free to post, you know, you don't really have an excuse. So I would just figure out like what it is, the direction you want to go, and then throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Like, you're never going to know until you try and fail. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of failure. You should just continue to iterate every time you see something not working. You know, like everything that we do is just another iteration of the thing before it. Like, even I look at our setup now, and then I look at our setup like 3 years ago, it was terrible, but we just started. And like, that's the whole thing, right? Like, everything when you start isn't very good. And like, at first, everyone's going to be like, that's stupid. Like, what are you doing? Why are you making those silly little videos? And now, like 10 years later, we're like full-time podcasts, and everyone that said it was stupid is probably like, damn, those guys kept doing that stupid thing that we thought was so stupid, you know? So it's just about continuing to follow your passions, and I think like chipping away at it. Don't look at, like Kostas was saying earlier, we looked at the things that we're doing in like decades, and I think that's really important, because many people, I think, that are your guys' age, not to like generalize, but it's like if something doesn't work right away, it's like a huge failure. And it's all about looking at it as like a year. And yeah, you go.
When it comes to acting, I don't know if we can necessarily speak directly to it, but I'll give you an example as far as like what it takes to get work from photography and video. And it is what's called a spec ad, and a spec ad is essentially you creating a set of photos or making a commercial that you don't get paid for. You come up with a concept, you do the whole thing, you shoot, edit it, the whole 9 yards. And in photo video land, doing that is a way to showcase your work. And a big thing when it comes to like working with brands is like they need to have proof of concept. And so I think you can maybe take that into, you know, wanting to be an actor or correspondent. Like, if you just want to be like a personality, you have to like show people what you're capable of. And so I would say just take the approach of staying consistent and showing up and creating content in whatever medium, whatever form you want to do. Get yourself out there, show people what you're capable of, and continue to work on your craft. You're really young, like you're, you know, not even in college yet, and so you also like learn a lot about yourself. A really interesting. I took a business of acting class actually my senior year of college, because I also thought originally I wanted to be like actor, correspondent. I get way too much stage fright and I can't remember lines to save my life, so didn't really work. But one of the homework assignments was we had to reach out to an actor and get advice. And so I reached out to, or I was friends with this girl whose dad had been acting for a while and had seen some success. And his advice was, go experience life. And he said, don't even worry about like the specific stuff. He's like, when it comes to wanting to be an actor, the most important thing is to be able to like pull from different experiences to bring into the character. And so if you can, and I think it's like great advice for anybody, like the most interesting people and the most like successful people, I would say, have had like a lifetime of experiences. And so my advice for you would just to be to like try as many like different experiences, travel when you can, meet different people, try different foods. Like, the more culture and more life experience that you can obtain, like you'll be able to bring that into your world of acting for sure. Because if you are trying to do acting and you want to, you know, play characters, it's all about building out that world. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like in acting, it's like, what was the moment before? Like it's all about like building out the character. And so if you can have like specific life experiences that you can draw on to build out that character, that'll help you a lot.
One more random thing on the topic of like mentorship. I'm sure there's like maybe an actor or an actress that you look up to. like in 2024, you can pay people directly to get access to them. And like I've done this myself with people that are way more successful than me that I want to learn from. I will just DM them and be like, how much does it cost for like an hour of your time? And they'll tell you. Like most people will just tell you. And so it's like a hack that I don't think enough people do that. And like it's just like the guy we had on our pod yesterday. I paid $150 for a coaching session because his account's huge. He has like 700,000 followers on Instagram. Impossible to get in contact with him. Paid for this thing, and I was like, "Yo, listen, I don't really want the consultation. I just want you to be on our podcast." And he was like, "You gotta." What did he say? He was like, like there. Oh God, I'm gonna butcher it, but basically like. You're doing business with them, like I'm paying for your thing, like he's gonna reciprocate by like being on this show basically, because it's like, so I would think about that, because you can get access to some of the most successful people in the world off of like a message or an email. So, and you'd be really surprised at who says yes. Yeah, sure, a lot of people are gonna say no, but you'll be surprised at who says yes and who responds.
Yeah, dude, like just DM Timothy
Yeah,
Chalamet.
DM Chalamet,
Denzel.
Give him a call. Give Timmy a call.
All right, thank you. That was good.
Yeah.
Very wise. Loved it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Anybody else have any questions for these guys? You have time. Ask away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly like Instagram better. DM me on Instagram. It's Figgy and Kostas G95. I low key hate email, but DM me. I'll respond to everything.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. I'll probably
Yep.
DM you. So
Okay, cool.
thanks.
Okay. So the last thing for me, at least, before I don't think anyone else has anything else for you guys, but the next project that these guys mainly are going to be working on is more of a formal documentary piece, mainly around like certain, pretty much either any figures or any like social issues or things that they deem necessary, I guess. So is there any advice that you guys have, especially, since that definitely was the most recent episode of what I listened to, that you guys learned from for documentary filmmaking and such?
Yeah,
I would say that episode.
I'd say go listen to Mark Bone, and like it's like an hour. It was a long convo. That's like Mark knows a hell of a lot more than us about making documentaries, and he's so good at it.
It's a masterclass. He like when it comes to one of the things that really stuck out to me is when he said the most important thing when it comes to documentary is like figuring out what the desire of your character is. But I've never made a documentary, and if you guys are making a documentary, you don't have to listen to the full podcast. You don't even have to listen to the podcast if you don't want to, but check out this guy named Mark Bone. He has a whole course and cohort about documentary filmmaking, and he's got an incredible YouTube channel about filming, lighting, storytelling. So that would be my advice.
I think another thing, and this is super different for sports than it is with like an actual person's story, but in the sense that if you guys were filming something about sports, I think the two of the most important things, if like just off the top of my head, are the B-roll that you guys capture of your character doing the things that they would do for the film or like in their daily life, and get multiple different angles of them doing the exact same thing so you have stuff to cut to. Nothing's more boring than like a 15-second shot of someone like going to pour a coffee and it's just in one spot. Like, get a wide shot of them pouring the coffee, get a medium shot of them from a different angle with a 30-degree change, and then zoom in and get a tight shot of the coffee going into the cup. And like those little things just make your cinematography so much better than the person who's just sitting on like the wide shot for like the longest period of time and it's super boring and dragging. And then your interview questions are like wicked important. Like when we got to interview the guys on the Lakers for like little films that we were making, I'd call them like mini doc things. It's super, super important to get a great interview from them. And like the number one beginner mistake I see with interviews is they don't have their subject repeat the question and the answer. So like, how old are you? I am this, like, I am blank years old. Or like, where are you from? I am from here. They'll just be like, where are you from? Kansas. That's like no context to the question. And like, we can't actually like do anything with that. So make sure that your subject is repeating it back. And another thing on interviews is make sure that if like you're filming an interview with somebody, you are at the exact eye level of the person that you're filming it with. If they're sitting down and you're standing up, they're looking like this up at you. It looks super stupid and like very amateur. So make sure that you're at the eye level of them. If they're on a chair, you're on the same level of chair, right? That I think that's a really big one. I think, yeah, for like filming a good interview.
Okay. Anybody else have anything at all for these guys?
Go buy your camera.
All right. He said, "Go buy your camera."
Could we get a photo of like quad grouped up close to the lens?
Yeah. Let me like turn off all these lights and turn the other lights on so you can see everybody. Hold on one second.
That'd be awesome.
All right. So turn on the fluorescents, please. Thank you. Turn off these. Move these chairs out of the way so Ellery can get in the shot too.
All right, here we go.
Hey, we're doing a video.
All right, hold on. Hold on. All right, cut. All right. Yay. All right.
It's wider than it looks, right?
Hold on. I'll show you guys how wide it actually is. Hold on. So that's the shot. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, hold on. You know what? You know what I'll do? Hold on. Hold on. I'll move back.
Back that thing up. Hold on.
Okay.
No, we got a big squad.
Zach.
Nope, that's just bad.
Here.
All right.
You ruined
I'm ready
it.
to see what you're doing.
Oh no.
Go.
All right, what? There we go. There.
All right, we're gonna do a little video.
Oh, a video.
There we go.
3, 2, 1.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.